Hello and welcome to the weekly voice chat for the Men's Human Rights Discord. We are the official Discord of the Men's Rights subreddit, and we are the operators of the Men Are Human website. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about feminism in the university system, feminism in the college education system, and how students are being brainwashed and being indoctrinated by more radical elements of feminism and progressive politics. And actually, I'm going to show you some links in a second about this is not just happening in college. This is happening in high schools, where there are high schools considering to implement feminist curriculum as a mandatory class for high school students. I do believe it was in Australia. Let me hunt down that link. But anyway, this is something that I've experienced firsthand. This is something that a lot of us have experienced firsthand. We remember stories such as when there was a men's rights talk in the University of Toronto, and feminists basically attacked it and assaulted them, ran inside and pulled the fire alarm. What that does is it's stifling discussion. And several times around the world and throughout the talk, I'm going to be posting examples in the text in just a second. But several times we've seen stories of people trying to start men's groups on college campuses and feminists refusing them, saying, no, we can't do that. That's hate speech. But I don't understand what gives feminists the right to tell men's rights activists that they don't even have the right to exist on a college campus. A college campus is the place where different ideas get discussed and challenged and debate. So what does it say that they wouldn't object to a feminist group, they wouldn't object to a capitalist group, they wouldn't object to a communist group, they wouldn't object to virtually any religious group, but the men's rights group is the one thing you're not allowed to have. It's like, that's the thing that's too controversial, is to have a men's rights group. Let me look for some examples. MRAs at University of Toronto. You can hear me typing in the background. Sorry about that. I'm going to post it in the voice discussion. I'm going to start with the one, University of Toronto. I'm going to put a YouTube link. It was the Warren Farrell protest.
We shouldn't just. We don't want people to think that that's the only time that's happened, because we do bring that protest up a lot.
Oh yeah, no, I got more. Got more.
Oh yeah,
I got more.
Yeah,
I just linked that one now. I'm just gonna. Okay. So I'm done with my introduction. People take it away from here, but do check the voice discussion, because I'm going to be posting periodically these kinds of stories as I hunt them down. I know there's a lot that I have to hunt down, so. Actually, we should start in voice discussion. Is anybody in college now or just finished college recently? On the voice discussion, if that's you, and if you'd like to speak about it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you want to mute your mic and go get those examples up and put them in the chat.
Yeah, I know. Darkisha, you're in college now, I believe.
Miss Degree, did you want to speak about? I couldn't hear anything you were saying just then. Did you?
Miss Degree can't speak. She's at work. She said in the voice chat.
Oh, okay. Sorry, her mic went live for a little bit there, and I assumed that she was speaking, and I couldn't hear her. Anyway, yeah. As Blue was saying, it's not just that one riot that feminists caused. They have, in fact, been doing this quite regularly. It just happens. Oh, can everyone hear me? Well, anyway, it just so happens that one of the most egregious examples of them protesting a men's rights event where people got good quality footage of it. They got interviews and they spoke to people there who wanted to get into the event, who just wanted to talk about male suicide and things like that. But this is an ongoing thing. You're just not really hearing about it because they're basically clamping down on anyone talking about it. This is a classic tactic of theirs. They put their message out and they make sure it's the only message. So as Blue has shown now, they've in Australian high schools, they're now teaching feminism courses. Now, I don't know exactly what that's going to entail, and we shouldn't just assume based on one Vice article what it's going to entail. But I'm
We could
pretty
probably
sure
we could probably make a pretty good guess, though.
yeah, it's probably going to be the old women are oppressed, men the oppressors, and men have been holding women down throughout history, and that's why even now they need special treatment and special help to become CEOs and stuff. But it's that kind of they're going to whitewash history. They're going to do all the usual sorts of things they do.
And how much do you want to bet that they're not going to bring up the education gap?
Oh, they're definitely
problem,
not going to bring it up.
Of course not. Or if they do, they'll specially curtail it to only apply to girls. Let's talk about.
Yeah, they'll definitely bring up STEM, and they won't acknowledge the fact that women actually dominate universities at the moment, and that they're heading towards 70%, I think, of the share. They're currently at about 60-something percent of the total students in college and university. Is anyone else having sound problems? Are they? Can you all hear us?
I can hear you, but it's just a little shaky.
I see. Okay. I'm not sure how we can fix that, but
Try just
okay,
fiddling
right.
try just fiddling with your mic.
I'll try something if you can carry the chat for a little bit.
Okay. So what really scares me about this, I wonder the high school classes. Do you think students will be indoctrinated by it and become brainwashed? Or do you think, especially the boys, will realize, wait a minute, this does not reflect our actual lived experience at all? Do you think it's going to push students away? Or do you think students are going to get caught up in it? Or a mixture of both?
I honestly think it's going to be a mixture of both. A painter, go on.
I was just going to say, it's going to appeal to boys' base nature, which is to protect the women and girls around them. So we're already seeing this with the fact it's so difficult to get men that have been victims of violence and what have you to accept the fact that they have been victims.
Yeah, it is very, very difficult to get boys to admit that they've been abused, and it's very difficult to get men, even more difficult to get men to say they've been abused, because with boys there's avenues that they can release that with. They can talk to their parents, they can talk to other people. They're less closed off than men, because men they do have this sort of I've just got to deal with this sort of mentality, really. But they also kind of men and boys have this if it doesn't kill them, men and boys tend to minimize trauma that happens to them and focus on other people's trauma. This is something you'll see a lot with abuse victims who talk to us on the server and on Twitter and things like that, where they'll, as we said before, they'll come in and say, well, at least nothing that bad has happened to me. And then they'll come out with even worse story if you prod them a little bit. There's a sense in which men remember the trauma, but they don't think of themselves as victims. But yeah, this is getting slightly off topic in that we're talking about boys now, but in the classrooms, I'm thinking that it's going to be a big mix, depending on how the teacher is to a large extent. If the teacher is very hard line, then the chances are she's going to red pull a lot of the boys. Did somebody say that they had experiences of this directly that they wanted to share?
I can honestly say that the experiences I had were pretty good in terms of treatment of gender. There was a very, I don't even want to say it because I liked it for the most part, but in my film school, there was a feminist instructor who every once in a while, she would say things that I was like, but she was a nice person. I honestly don't even bring that up. I do remember there was he and this director who we ended up working together, and we became friends. We had a laugh over. They put up a poster saying, "What kind of director do you want to be?" And there were like 9 pictures and like famous directors. Like, oh, do you want to be like the funky director, the risky director, the experimental director, the classic director? Different kind of genres and styles. And someone, obviously a girl, wrote an angry protest. She graffitied it saying, "A female director," and underscored the female. And we both laughed because we thought that's such like an anti-feminist thing. Like, a female director is not a type of director; it's just a person. Like, you shouldn't identify as, what kind of director are you? Oh, I'm a female director. That's not a type. That's not a style. That's not a genre. That's a ridiculous way to identify yourself. You're just lowering yourself. That when they want to have, they want the Oscars to recognize more women. They want to have a best director category and then a best female director category. Isn't that just lowering women, though? Aren't you just saying that women are like this kind of like subset?
Yeah, it's kind of patronizing, to be honest. It's like, you've got the real directors, and then you've got the kiddie version. But it's getting back onto the track of the one thing that we're really worried about right now, and I don't know if anyone else saw that that clip that was posted on the Discord a couple of days ago, but there's quite a lot of, basically, the gender studies programs are now infecting other parts of academia. Something that most people don't know is that now they are going into the sciences, and they're trying to have gender studies style what's the word, papers, scientific papers and things like that, like the gender and hydrodynamics and stuff like that, and you know what I mean. It's that sort of thing. Like you'll have a bunch of sciencey stuff, and then it'll be pardon.
And they're saying things like, we need to revisit the laws of physics and mathematical equations and physics concepts, like space time and relativity, because all of those, or most of those things, were developed by men. Therefore, they're not completely valid because they don't have the female perspective to it. There's no such thing as a perspective of the laws of physics. Laws of physics are the laws of physics. There's no, with the female version of gravity or the female version of electromagnetism, there's no such thing as that. If Einstein got it right, he got it right. You don't need another person's perspective, or a female perspective, or a black perspective, or a white perspective, or a young or an old perspective, or anything else. Physics is just physics. Always. Math is just math. Always.
Well, the sciences are prone to being infiltrated by ideologies, and I won't be specific here, but feminism is one of them. You can get, I mean, as you say, at a fundamental level, maths and physics and all that stuff is just maths and physics. but you can then, on a layer above that, take those basic findings and twist them into whatever shape you want to fit narratives and ideologies and things like that. That
You know, we're talking about the.
Go on. Blue? Well, I think we lost Blue there for a second, unless I've been muted or something. But yeah, the ideologies will basically trying to always trying to infect the sciences and things like that. But it's much more seeable, viewable when you get to things like statistics and sociology and things like that, where they've twisted all of the facts, and then these facts are taken and they are fed to college students, and they are fed to high school, secondary school students, and this is the sort of thing you'll then get in the gender studies for high school students class in Australia that they now have. Blue, did you?
Yeah. What I wanted to say is, why don't we try encouraging or sponsoring some men's groups at college campuses? You know, I actually tried doing that down at FAU. I think I'd probably have to be enrolled. I don't think you can start a group if you're not a student. But I think maybe a good solution to this is let's counterbalance it by having, if not men's rights classes, which would be a very hard sell for a university, you could have a men's rights social group or a men's rights student group.
Yeah, I'd be wary of it being a men's lib group unless I was actually in it and able to influence it.
Yeah.
But
on that subject, there has been a guy, I can't remember which university he was at. He tried to get a men's group up and running.
Imperial College, I know him.
And he's still fighting it about 5 years later.
It was. I'm pretty sure it was either. I think actually it might have been King's College. It was either King's or Imperial. I actually spoke to him, and he didn't. I'm gonna try and dig that up. He did an interview, where he said he's not like one of those misogynistic MRAs. He just wants to talk about, you know, men's issues. And I talked to him and said, listen, by the way, I am secretly an MRA. I only said that because that's the only way that they let the article be published in the first place.
that's frustrating and pretty typical from them, as far as I've seen. They will just rewrite the truth and force you to say things that you didn't say in order to twist the narrative in the direction they want it to go. But this is how they influence like a lot of people at these colleges and universities. They'll use these I mean, we've all seen the that image from the college gender studies textbook, right, where it's got a little hand saying stop racism or sexism exists, but reverse racism is not a thing, and reverse sexism is not a thing because it requires systemic oppression, and there's no. Yeah, it sounds very logical if you're just seeing it for the first time, but if you're like unpacking it, then you'll realize that systemic doesn't have any kind of impact on whether something's racist or sexist or not, because you see like a street gang who goes around beating up people of a particular race isn't systemic, but it's still racist. You can have the same thing with gender, you can have the same thing with sexuality, and so on.
The systemic argument is used by people that are by their very nature sexist, racist, homophobic, or whatever. They're using it to justify their own bigotry.
Yeah, it is very much a rules lawyering kind of move, if you know that phrase. It intended to basically give themselves a handy get out for when they are racist and sexist, because they wouldn't feel the need to do that unless they were actively planning to be racist and sexist.
Yeah, it's basically they invented the definition to justify their own actions and behaviors. They've invented the definition that sexism is prejudice plus power, because it now gives them a kind of license to kill, so to speak. You know, it gives them a carte blanche to say whatever they want and say, well, this doesn't count for us because by definition, we can't be sexist. Even though we invented the definition ourselves and just totally made it up, and we made it in such a way that it benefits us. No, that's how you have to take it. That's what it means. Therefore, we're not sexist. We're just balancing these out. And then, of course, they not only do they invent the definition sexism equals prejudice plus power, but they go ahead and assume that it's men that have the absolute power in the first place, completely ignoring any relevant stats about education rates or employment rates or legal privileges or legal disparities. They just completely go by the assumption that their theory of male privilege is the absolute fact and the absolute truth, as if it's a science formula. And then they apply that to their definition of sexism, which is like a science formula. And that's exactly how they're going to go into sciences and start changing things. They're going to take their opinions or their feelings or their theories, and they're going to present it with the assumption of being absolute fact. Therefore, if you oppose anything that they say, you're going against science, because they have now determined what the definition of sexism means. They have now determined what the definition of privilege means, and they have now determined that they are the sole arbiters and the sole judges of when and where their terms apply, and to whom.
And the funny thing is that they need power to make those definitions stick, and they've got it. It's very interesting. It's a very common totalitarian tool to like take words and redefine them. I mean, this is something that was in 1984, the book, and it's amazing that people have just sort of not noticed them doing this, when this is literally like the plot of 1984, and everybody knows like how the party took words and then redefined them to mean the exact opposite of what they actually mean and things like that. They're always doing this, and you know it makes it very hard to even argue with them. And like they're not the only people who do this, but they are the ones who we have to face. And you know, it just makes it so difficult to talk to any of them, because they just like, no, this is the definition. And then you ask them for the source on that, and they'll give you some feminist dictionary or something, and it's just totally meaningless. I mean, we all know if you look at the actual, like if you go to a proper what's the word, philosophy dictionary and look up things like racism and sexism, they don't have these special definitions. Usually, they usually define it the way you would define it, and it's you know, it's very, very, it has a really staggering propaganda effect on the you know, the kids who are like 16 17 going into college for the first time.
Can I ask for some examples of this? Because, like, in my area and everyone I know, we grew up with, like, Oxford dictionaries being used everywhere.
Yeah, tell me what, if Blue can carry the chat for a bit, I'll try and track down some of the things I've seen in the past.
All right.
Yeah, so the big one...
I've never seen this like used in a political discussion before, because everyone I know pulls their definitions off of Oxford and Google.
Well, as a matter of fact, I just Googled it, and this is the first thing that popped up. If you go through some of the definitions, go through that. Look at the 4 different definitions. The first one's gender neutral. The second one says especially against women. The third one says ingrained and institutionalized prejudice against women. So go to that third one. And then the fourth one says hatred, dislike, or mistrust of women / misogyny. That's dictionary.com. That's the first thing that pops up when you Google it. And that third definition is the one you always hear feminists say. I can't tell you how many times I've heard it where they say that sexism equals prejudice plus power. And because women don't have institutional power, therefore, their discrimination cannot be called sexism.
That generally
I
just
would-
comes from the flawed idea that power comes from prejudice, or prejudice comes from power.
And it's twisted now in such a way that people genuinely believe that sexism against men can't be a thing, which is obviously nonsense. Trans Surreal Girl is asking, Duluth model technically counts as one. It's very similar, yes. Duluth model basically is the feminist model about domestic violence, where they say domestic violence is a result of inherent gender dynamic differences, and therefore men are the inherent perpetrator and women are the inherent victims because domestic violence is caused by misogyny. Completely ignoring domestic violence in same-sex relationships, of course, completely ignoring men who are victims of domestic violence. No, that's what they say. Trans Rigo is saying, you're saying blue is making a stretch. I've heard it. I'm not saying every feminist thinks that,
This is
but I've heard
the
it.
only thing. In a quick Google, this is the only thing I could find for the Duluth model, which is like
Can I say
genuinely
something?
good ideas. Besides,
No, Kaiser. I know the thing that you pulled up, but if you read the entirety of the Duluth model, it is very much a gendered system.
the only thing I can see here being gendered is trust and support, which is supporting her goals in life. Everything else is gender neutral, making
You're just
sure
looking at
both
one-
partners
right.
benefit
You're
from
just looking at one picture though. When you go to the whole website, read the whole website. What they say, it's very much when you comb through it, it is very much gendered.
Creating process, change when better.
Do you want to speak?
Last year, final year of high school, and I'm an arts humanity student. So in my sociology textbook, if I open a page about stuff like rape, domestic abuse, and all, any kind of harassment, any kind of attack or laws related to it, it only focuses on the females or women in general. It doesn't have parents pages. It says it only says about domestic abuse of women. It only says of the struggle of a woman in a relationship or laws related for them, and in any kind of assault, sexual harassment, all of them. It only talks about women. And I'm in ICSE board, which is like the central board in India, the highest ranking education board in India. And in the final year of high school in sociology textbook, it doesn't have any mention of it.
Yeah, that's very common. That's basically what the Duluth model is. It doesn't explicitly say domestic violence against men doesn't exist. You know, they throw in a token mention here and there. Oh yes, we know men can be victims too. Then they always say, however, but due to the nature of gender dynamics, the vast majority is against women. So they throw in a little token acceptance. Oh yes, we know what happens to men too, but the intent behind it is very, very clear when you read it. I mean, they make it very gendered for a reason, and what they want is to put the idea in people's minds that domestic violence against men is so rare that it basically is a non-issue.
Yeah, the power and control wheel, which version of which was linked to above. I think it's the reverse version linked above, but the power control wheel often says him. I have noticed that they're starting to take the him out of it and the her and and stop gendering it, but at the same time it's still built on patriarchy theory. And so the theory in a nutshell, the Duluth model, is that men oppress women systemically, and that men seek power over women through violence, and that they are basically using violence to oppress women. And that's basically how it supposedly works, which is why if a man phones up a Duluth operating charity and asks to talk to somebody about being abused as a man, they will direct him to a batterers program.
It happened to me. I did that. I actually,
Yeah.
it was It was a I'm not gonna say who it was, but it was just a man that I knew who lived nearby, and I had very compelling evidence that his girlfriend was abusive. And I didn't want to come out and say it directly to him. I kind of hinted at it, but I didn't really go in it, and he kind of didn't want to talk about it. So I called actually the Duluth model. I was curious to see what they would say. I said, "Hey, listen, I have this neighbor. This is the situation," and they said, very helpful. But as soon as I used the word he instead of she, it was a very strange change of tone. It was as if they all of a sudden resented my calling. It would all of a sudden became very flippant. Mr. Degree says, "Do you mind saying what kind of abuse?" Physical, hitting, not serious injuries per se, but punching, stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I didn't. I saw her slap him once in the hallway, and sometimes when I walk past, I'd hear what very much sounded like closed fists. So, but yes, I did call the Duluth model to see what they'd say, and they were just as soon as it was him, change of tone was immediate. And for Canada, if anyone lives in Canada, go on Google right now. Pretend you're a male victim of domestic violence. See what you can find for yourself. Little experiment. Imagine you're Canadian. Okay, Google men's victims of domestic violence, men's shelter, and then put your city or your province. What you can get.
Yeah, a lot of the time, if you go on one of their websites, they'll have a tab for women and a tab for men. The tab for women is all centered around being a victim, and the tab for men is all centered around being an abuser, trying to quit being an abuser. And they will also put you into batterers programs where you have to confess that you are a batterer, and it's mandatory, and you can be put in there by a court, and they will demand that you say you're a batterer. And if you do not say you're a batterer, they will they will use all the power they can to strip you of your rights and things like that until you do admit. And when you do admit, they will treat that as a confession in court, and they'll say it's proven that you're a batterer, you admitted it, and you'll be you lose either way. You can't win in these things.
Mark Angelucci actually did a whole case about this. The National Coalition for Men did a case about this back, I think it was roughly 2006, 2007, something like that. And exactly what you said, I'll try and dig it up. Exactly what you said was what it was. I think it was called People versus Woods, I think, California. Let me see if I can find.
Yeah, it is extraordinarily depressing trying to phone one of these charities and get any kind of positive response as a male victim of domestic violence. We've got articles on the citation list about men being laughed at, like openly laughed at and hung up on, men being mocked on these phone numbers. Like, you can't be a victim, you're a man. It's incredibly depressing, especially when a male victim gets shoved into the system as an abuser and they actually haven't laid a hand on their girlfriend or wife, and they are just being treated as the abuser because it's the default position. Recently, there was a video on the Discord about a police officer, an ex-police officer, being interviewed about how often they come across men being abused and things like that. And they talked about how the system was set up so that the police, even if they object to it, they have to arrest the man, even though they, quite often when they know that he's actually the victim, and they just don't have any call or say in it. But moving back to the main topic of tonight, that is what the students are being taught in colleges and things like that. That we recently had an image on the MRA memes Reddit sub, which was a screenshot of an ex MRA saying that they've one who was a MRA as like a young teenager saying, no, I fully accepted feminism. It's it's right, and I used to be a little edgelord and stuff like that. And they may have been a little edgelord, but they were certainly shouldn't have accepted feminism without looking into our side. But Blue, your mic's
Well,
live.
I think that person was is likely probably just a feminist the whole time, and it's just a false flag operation.
I
mean, I
don't
don't know
think so,
anyone-
because they ran an MRA themed sub for several years as a
Was it an
moderator.
was it an MRA sub, or was it like a red pill MAGTOW sub?
Actually, that's a fair point. It
was
was
the
it was one of those. Hang on, I'll get the exact name.
Yeah, a lot of people, quote unquote, leave the men's rights movement, but what they're in fact leaving has nothing to do with the men's rights movement. That they were either on some MAGTOW or some red pill site, and they think they're MRAs because they read on the internet that that's what MRAs are, and then they say, "Oh, I'm leaving the men's rights movement." No, you were never in the men's rights movement. You were in something different, something completely else. Okay, Kolik, that was very good. He just posted, or she, sorry, the different what happens when you Google domestic violence for men in Quebec. Very interesting. Look at some of the results. Quebec spends 20 million for men's recovery resources. That was from April 2021. That's recent. That's encouraging. And then let's see, also 2021, opinion to prevent domestic violence. Men must also be a part, I assume, of the conversation, which is good. And then treatment clinics for violent men want bigger role in Quebec. So that looks like treatment clinics for violent men. So, but that's encouraging. Wait a minute. Is that spending 20 million for male victims, or is that spending 20 million to counsel violent men? Because look at that last quote there. I'm in the voice discussion, by the way. I'm looking at Kolik 8's post. Quebec investing millions to help violent men. Wait a minute. Is that so? Wait a minute. They're not investing that money to help male victims. Helping that money, they're giving that money to give therapy to violent men to cure them, is what it looks like. Oh, I'm sorry. I was getting excited there. I thought, oh yeah, that's good. No, they're not spending money on male victims. They're spending money on male perpetrators. There you go. That is a Duluth model in effect. I'm not sure if they use Duluth model in Canada or not, but they essentially do exactly the same thing. There you go.
Oh, they pretty much do use it, yeah.
So the middle one, opinion to prevent domestic violence, men must also be a part, I'm assuming, of the conversation. They're not saying that we need to also include male victims. What they're saying is, we need to also reach out and teach men not to be violent. God, that's so disappointing. God, that is so disappointing.
Yeah, they do this a lot. White Ribbon are pretty notorious for doing this sorts of thing. They are an absolutely Duluth model organization, though they are under new management now that is supposedly more benign. That management is, I think they're still doing the Duluth model stuff. They don't seem to be acknowledging male victims at all, as far as I've seen.
Make no mistake, we are the pressure from men is slowly changing the conversation to include male victims. So it's not as bad as it once was. But make no mistake, they're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. They're doing it because they have to do the bare minimum for appearance sake. So
good news from the UK in that most domestic violence adverts I've seen are now pretty gender neutral. Though that is in terms of like the generic info adverts, they probably still use a lot more pictures of women, but there have been campaigns run in the UK for male victims of domestic violence, and I think that's amazing progress. Unfortunately, in the rest of the world, that seems to be a too much of an ask. So the also in the UK, Refuge and people like that are still campaigning for a gendered domestic violence law that excludes men. I mean, they say it's because, oh, men don't need it as much because there are fewer male victims of domestic violence, and so we can just tidy away your legal rights and make this a nicer law for women. And you know they don't acknowledge the fact that in order for male victims to be counted by those statistics that they're using, there would have to be a law that allowed them to prosecute female abusers to begin with.
Let me just take this back to repeat what you said. What does this have to do with feminists' influence in the university system? Because this kind of thinking is exactly the kind of thing that would get imprinted on someone when they take this kind of feminist class. They learn feminist theory, and so when they see these laws and they see these sexist definitions and they see these sexist studies, it makes sense to them because, oh yeah, I learned that in school. So it's very much still on topic because these kinds of sexist laws are the kind of thing you will get if you prime a society to think in that way. But it starts early. The kind of bias starts early. What essentially these feminist classes will teach people to accept bias as factual and fair, and that bias can then lead to voting for politicians or becoming a politician who would support a sexist law for domestic violence, or to support a sexist policy on domestic violence, or to think that things like the White Ribbon campaign or the Duluth model make sense because it all fits in what they learned in school.
Did you guys see the pictures I sent? Did you guys see the pictures I posted in the voice discussion?
The pictures of textbooks.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a little. Can you maybe get it a little closer up, a little more clear? A little fuzzy. I can see the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2004. I can't really read the rest. Want to kind of read it?
So it's let's just say it's a textbook of mine. I'm in the final stage of high school. This is my sociology textbook. So it's about gender issues, and among those gender issues, they talk about all the major gender issue women faces, and also issues like domestic violence, harassment, stalking, all kinds of those stuff. But they do not mention men anywhere, not even in the Domestic Violence Act, Harassment Act, or any kind of act, literally any kind of, if not even in acid attacks.
Yeah, to move back to the original topic, because we have kind of been skirting around the original topic. What we really need to talk about is the bullying of new students into colleges and in secondary schools, high schools as well, where they will have feminist teachers and people like that propagating their ideology, and then they will have the students basically hunting down non-feminists and cornering them and bullying them. This is something we've seen a few times. There was an article a few years ago by a guy who claimed he was an MRA and he took a gender studies course, and he basically tried to convert them to talk about equality for all. We'll talk about yours just as soon as I finish this. The guy stood up and tried to like protest what they were teaching and that, but they bombarded him with feminist books and like they bullied him whenever he tried to speak out. And eventually, because of their pressure on him, they basically like converted him over to being a feminist. Now, Kaiser, you raise a good point. I'm not I'm not saying that like it's a murderous thing, but there is very much a lot of pressure in colleges. I mean, we've seen a lot of articles about students being bullied and harassed, and that for holding views that do not conform to the feminist narrative. Equality for All, you wanted to talk?
And just real fast, we can have Equality for All speak, and then I know Darkisha has a lot to say. I interviewed her on this topic. I would actually argue that Zad was being on topic, because having your official textbook for the course completely exclude men is kind of a form of bullying. Because
that was he's talking about.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought he segued on to talking about the Equality Act. Sorry. But yeah,
that was part of school curriculum.
Fair enough. All right then. Sorry, I got the wrong end of the stick there.
And what the scary thing is that the education board that I study in isn't really influenced by any kind of a political faction or any kind of particular faction in general. It's like the highest central board. We have like many education board. Some of them are quite biased or influenced by some.
We lost that. Equality for all. If you'd like to speak, now the floor is yours.
Mode in the whole country.
Okay, Darkisha can go first. If you want to speak, Darkisha. Equality has to go feed her horse. We gotta get. I wish Kathleen were here. I talked to her, by the way. She also likes the idea of having like a men's rights animal channel. Her with her birds, you with your horses. I'd love to get a video of a falcon riding on a horse. I don't know why I love that idea, but I just do.
Or like a tiny little saddle and very long, very thin little reins he hold in his beak.
I don't think he could. I think he would have to just kind of. He could probably use his claws to like kind of dig into the saddle and kind of stay put. I'm not sure if he could stay on a full gallop though. I'm sure like if it was like a little.
I don't
trot.
think they'd enjoy that. Yeah, back to the topic. Darkisha and
I think she's fallen out.
Okay, Equality for All. You wanted to talk?
No, she's out.
Oh yeah,
horses.
you want to go to children. Okay.
But the reason Darkisha and I did a whole interview about this. She recently graduated high school. I believe she's in college now, and she said she's in California. No, she's in Chicago. And at least as of circa 2019, it was bad. The environment in high school. So she's a lot to say, and then I'm pretty sure she started college recently. I can kind of say that when I went down to University of Miami, when I first started my quote unquote film career, which is not a joke that is, I did a student film at the University of Miami for someone's master's thesis. And I remember walking around the campus. There were all of these and this was 2015-ish, 2016-ish. There were all these very like passive aggressive, if not hostile, like feminist posters all around the dorms. I saw numerous girls wearing t-shirts for NOW, National Organization for Women. Guys was asking for examples. God, I don't know. It was just things like, 1 of 3 women will be raped in college. So men, you need to look at yourselves, or something along those lines. And I just remember the feeling that I got from it was, if I was a man and I wanted to do anything remotely to suggest that feminism may not be totally right, or to start a men's rights group, I just remember getting a sense that, man, I bet you I'd get a really, really, really hostile reaction just from trying it. I haven't been there. I had not been there since. I definitely think that a lot of people have been pointing out how people do seem to be getting a little feminist weary, and I do think that is correct. It's unavoidable. I mean, people hear it happen, or it happens to them, and so they realize, wait a minute, there's more to the story than just feminists are saying. But anybody else who would like to speak or can speak have experiences from the education system, either recently or now? Equality can talk. Excellent. The floor is yours.
Okay, so when it comes to where I live, it's actually illegal for teachers to talk about anything that has to do with their personal views or politics So I don't get tons and tons of experiences with that, but I do remember that my freshman year of high school, I had Avid, and my teacher openly told us that she was part of the feminist group. Now I don't know anything about her anymore because she teaches in Kuwait now, but when it comes to like situations where there's recruitment, what our school had is we did have like an MRA group and we had a feminist group. And a lot of the times we would actually go and collaborate with the other groups. And if they had little events going on, we would go and we would talk to each other. And that allowed us to have the ability to be able to merge our groups into a human rights group rather than doing that. So, and I've seen it happen a lot more at universities out here. And, you know, I go on tours, not anymore because I'm not in high school anymore, but we would go on tours and there would be tons and tons of stands out there specifically talking about abolishing, you know, MRA and feminism and like pushing, oh God, oh no, horses are coming. Oh crap. um, abolishing the two groups so that there was equal stance and we wouldn't have to sit there and argue that one group has it worse than the other in any kind of way, which I think is the biggest flaw when it comes to the two different groups, is that we have to sit here and only bring up specific things, but at least just altogether where I live, it's just the fact that we push having human rights. And so I push that a lot more as well, rather than, you know, having MRA and feminism. So it doesn't really affect anything to do out here. We're a lot more open towards being progressive for both genders rather than just one specific gender. So there's not really the fresh meat examples of people chasing after people to join specific groups.
Well, that is so cool that happened. Good on you guys. If only that was the way it was everywhere. I feel like so many people, you know, myself included, you know, get so caught up in winning that you turn it into a contest rather than trying to help people. And I know I've been guilty of that psychology. It's very easy for people to fall into that us versus them mentality. So that's awesome what you guys did. That's setting egos aside and coming together to make things better for everyone. That's awesome. There's a lot of lessons in that.
Did they manage to set ideology aside as well, or was there still a lot of patriarchy talk and stuff like that? I think she's been mobbed by horses and possibly eaten. Okay. I was just saying, did you notice a lot of ideology going on in the shared group, or did it have a dampening effect on ideological sort of things like yelling about the patriarchy and stuff like that?
I mean, obviously that didn't disappear at all, that there was a lot of get away from his food, go away. I'm sorry, I'm wrestling.
Wow, that's a weird group. Was there many food problems?
Everyone was stealing each other's
over biscuits.
ultimate war. Go away. Okay, so obviously, like when it came to patriarchy, that was still a prevalent. No, that was still something that was. Stop laughing at me. It's struggle. That was something that was still heavily prevalent inside of the group, even if we had, you know, established that we were human rights and we wanted to work towards men's rights and women's rights. A lot of the things that we would get represented on were primarily men's issues, and it sucked. Because a lot of the people that were in our group were people like me that have traumatic, you know, history, and a lot of us were primarily female that were inside of the group. And so none of that really disappeared, but as soon as we started forming groups that were particular towards human rights as a whole. There was a lot of criticism, especially from those that held power inside of Utah, that 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 this was something that shouldn't actually be happening at all. So I lost my train of thought. I am so freaking sorry. Okay, I'm gonna die.
I just, again, to repeat, I mean, I don't think people's biases are just going to disappear when you work together. I don't think anyone's under that fantasy that people would just immediately come together. We're on the same team. We're on the same page. Kumbaya. But when you look at Congress, when they actually manage to come together and do something bipartisan. By the way, equality, we got to get some video footage of these horses because it's just too good. But whenever you get Congress doing a bipartisan bill, which every once in a while Congress actually manages to do a good thing. Yeah, it's funny, Kaiser. I mean, never. It's certainly not very often. But on the rare occasion that they do manage to come together and do a bipartisan bill, it's not that they've suddenly become friends. It's not that they've suddenly come together. It's that they've said, you know what? We're not going to get anything done if we just keep arguing over something. Because let's just say Congress is balanced and it's a time when it's roughly 50-50. So they come together and they say, okay, what can we put together that we can both accept to help the American people? And I think that's something that we can do maybe with more moderate feminists. Instead of arguing with them, we could say, look, we can sit here and argue all day, or we can try and make some progress. And I think that colleges and universities are an excellent place to start doing that. And having a men's MRA group come to a college and saying, listen, we're not going to come here and try and fight against feminists. We're going to try and talk to feminists. And I think it'll be a very good look if the MRAs are saying, we're just here to talk, and the feminists are saying, we're trying to get you banned. I will agree. Actually, I can't tell what Kaiser is saying, but I also oppose the filibuster. I remember when I learned about it in high school, we had a really good government teacher. And I asked, so wait a minute, let me get this straight. If a representative walked in and started reading his grandma's apple pie recipe for 8 hours straight, they could do that? He says, yep, you could do that, which is ridiculous. But I think having a men's group starting at universities would be excellent. And even in general, maybe even for us, we can maybe adopt an attitude, an invitation to invite feminists into the group or invite feminists for discussion, more moderate feminists, under the pretext of, listen, we're not here to fight. We're here to talk.
It would be good. I quite like the idea of a change my mind segment. I think Blue would do very, very well running like a change my mind outside a university or a college. Like just get a bunch of people with cameras to hang around you to make sure that nobody can pull anything. And
I did that in London. I actually did that in London. I did that on the Westminster Bridge.
Well, can you tell us a bit about it?
99% of people paid absolutely no attention. And then I finally got into this debate with this guy who was male feminist, very passive aggressive. I got sociopath vibes from him. What it took to get him to accept that male circumcision is wrong. He kept using, but he kept saying, but FGM is worse. FGM is worse. I had to actually use this example. Are you saying that it's okay to cut off someone's arm because cutting off their hand isn't as bad? He said, well, of course not. I said, okay, so even if you don't think male circumcision is as bad as FGM, you can still acknowledge that it's a bad thing. He was like, that's a good point. Wow, yeah, okay. It really took me saying that for you to understand that. Like, I really had to use that ridiculous analogy for you to get it. No? I would disagree. Kaiser is saying X, Y, and Z is a classic MRA and feminist point. I'm going to have to argue that it's I see it much more from feminists than I do from MRAs.
I don't think I've seen an MRA use it. I mean, not in the sense that we should ignore like a female issue because a male issue is worse. I mean, even though male suicide is worse, male homelessness is worse, all these things are worse, we still want provisions for female
Let-
suicide and female homelessness.
May I
Well,
make a statement quickly?
I just wanna say really
Every
fast-
time
hold on.
every time I've
Really
brought up
fast.
a female
Just
issue
what
during
Ma
a
said.
discussion,
Hold on, Kaiser. Really
Guys,
fast.
one at a time.
Just to quickly add on what Ma said, I think it's sometimes fair to point out something like, well, men are more likely to die on the job. It doesn't mean it's only a male issue, but it's a worthwhile thing to bring up sometimes. Anyway, sorry, Kaiser, go on.
every time I've tried to talk about like a female issue or even like a general issue without bringing up gender or sex, every time it's but this, but that. Earlier today, I was having a conversation with True Surreal Girl, and I was talking about homelessness, and they were like 71% of homelessness people in the United States are men. And I said, yes, we should be focused more on homelessness in general in the housing industry than the fact that 71% of homeless people are men, because that's a larger issue. The homing industry affects 330 million Americans, not 400,000. And they kept bringing it up 3-1, 3-1. There's 3 homeless men for every homeless woman. It's something I have seen used several times in this server. I've brought up female issues before, and they've said, yeah, but this statistic says that. It's like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the problem that is present. I'm not here to debate numbers with you. I'm here to debate solutions.
Well, we can debate solutions if you want. I mean, we're just saying that men do have a lot of issues that aren't being taken seriously. And
Well,
that we
I've
do
heard
need
those
to-
issues 12 different times in this conversation. I'm trying to talk about how can we deal with sexual assault. You don't need to tell me for the 12th time in the last 30 minutes. Hey, men get sexually assaulted too.
Yeah, well,
Frankly,
okay.
I think-
would you like to suggest some
Darkeisha.
things we can do?
Hang on, Darkeisha's back. I'm going to see if she wants to speak. We did a whole interview about this topic, so I know she has a lot to say. I will say for sexual assaults, like pretty much any violent crime, people don't like to hear this, but I think in terms of a solution, I really don't. I mean, short of putting a police officer and video camera on every single street corner in the world, I don't think there is a solution.
Putting a police officer on every street corner is not a solution either.
Right. So I don't think it's possible to completely eliminate any kind of assault, frankly.
No, we can
Maybe-
only mitigate it and help the victims instead of focusing on the gender politics around it. I also went and typed out that article that they sent earlier. The section
India?
C.
Yeah, okay. Oh, you could read it?
I opened it in a Chrome tab. It makes the text a lot bigger, so I was able to zoom in and type it all out.
For you.
Yeah, the image is just the way it is. It's too scrunched to properly read.
Yeah.
All right, I'll let Darkeisha take over.
Well, I'm not sure if she's. So let me ask you, Kaiser. If Darkeisha wants to speak, I'm going to let her jump in because I know she's kind of an expert on this topic. But I debated this with Vouch, if you saw, and I'm going to run downstairs really fast. I'll be able to hear you. Do you think that these classes to prevent sexual assaults in colleges are a good idea or a waste of time?
I think it depends on how it's handled. It can be handled well. It can be handled poorly. The classes themselves don't matter as much as what's being taught inside them. Same thing with like the push for more self-defense. The carrying of different self-defense items, be it stun guns or firearms.
Yeah, I'm very much against these self-defense classes for women. I think they do more harm than good.
I don't think self-defense classes are a bad idea if they're teaching people like how to defend yourself, because even things like stun guns and firearms, you can't always pull things out. Yeah, they should. Self-defense classes should just be like, here, I'm teaching you how to defend yourself.
My problem with these classes is that a lot of them are absolute nonsense. Anyone who has had any experience fighting, whether like in MMA or in a street fight, you cannot learn. A woman cannot learn how to defend herself from a much larger man in a 3-hour course. Anyone that has ever been in a street fight or ever done martial arts will know that that's just not how a real physical altercation works. It doesn't exist.
If you have a basic idea of what you can utilize, things like pressure points on the body, yes, you can. It's not that hard if you know.
The pressure points is absolute. I'm sorry, but those things are absolute nonsense. Yeah.
I mean, I use them to mess with my family all the time, and it's hilarious. So they work for me.
I was just going to say the use of pressure points is a real thing.
Use of pressure
Like,
points is useful to some degree, but I think the reality is it's sort of true. You can't learn self-defense in 3 hours. I've taken Taekwondo classes from a young age. You don't learn how to have the proper stance and the way to get a person twice your size over you and to attack them and run away in just 3 hours. You learn that over years and years of time and perfecting your stances and your basic moves and advancing slowly.
By the way,
And this is why-
today's topic is feminism in schools and how kids are being brainwashed and how it's affecting the environment. I know you and I did an interview on that, so I know you have a lot to say on this topic if you want to.
Yeah, I saw the topic. I don't know what to say. My personal experience, we do have a lot of women's clubs in the universities, at least up here in northern USA, as I will put it. And I would say some of the groups are decent, but for the most part, I would say they're quite a negative space, personally, in my experience, from the few times I've joined some. It's a lot of brainwashing, I guess, to put it in the nicest, most plausible way possible. I've tried bringing up men's issues and stuff, and I get the same response of, "Oh, men have rights already, and why are we talking about men's issues? You know, it's about women and women empowerment, and oh, she had to do so much with her life to get to where she is, and he had to do nothing." And it's like, well, I understand women have some issues, of course, and we have had struggle with some things, but we also need to discuss men's issues. And they're very into, and it's hard too because the university spread this message too, where they have female only days, and they have female history month, and they have female this day and female movie day, and it's just all about promoting women and feminism stuff, and they don't paint men well either. And now recently I found out that middle schools are starting to teach, at least middle schools up here, they're starting to teach about sexual assault and stuff. And I wouldn't mind that if they taught it properly. My problem is in the way they teach it. First of all, for certain ungodly reason, they're making it the first lesson during the sex ed course, which shouldn't be. It should be in the sex ed course, but closer to the end. What you're supposed to first learn in sex ed is about how your body works. And secondly, their example is always the Me Too movement. They use the Me Too movement as their example. A lot of the times we're teaching sexual assault. How old? Well, I found out through my brother's workbook from his sex ed class when he was in 6th grade. So 12. 11.
6th grade is 11. Wow, I don't know.
11, 12.
I went to Catholic school, so we had abstinence classes, which were a total joke, and we just laughed it off. But to have full-on sex ed class at 11, I don't know, that's a little young.
I would disagree with that point. I would say with the fact that sexual assault and rape cases towards men, there have been a lot of cases with younger kids. I would say it's quite appropriate. And also that's around the age where they're about to start puberty. So, if it's a true proper sex ed class, they're learning how to deal with that.
Fair enough. So from your brother's workbook, did you get the sense that it was going to be biased?
Yeah, a lot, to be honest. Because it wasn't even like straight up just, oh, this is what sexual assault is. This is the Me Too movement. It literally said Me Too in there. This is the Me Too movement. This is what it's about. It's all these women been sexually assaulted and this and this and that, and, and it's because of all these guys who are horrible in the world, and you need to learn to control yourself so you don't become this guy. And I was like, what the fuck lesson is this? Oh, I probably shouldn't swear.
Well, I can share the sentiment. I mean, so would you describe it as something that could potentially brainwash or condition the student to have subconscious misandristic thoughts or feelings?
I would say it doesn't help make them any better. I feel like it would make them feel a little worse about themselves.
Well, let me ask, does it at least acknowledge that men can be victims too?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, it both men and women are victims of sexual assault. It's just we need to teach it in a manner that allows it so it's recognized that it affects both.
Yeah. Yeah. John, if you want to jump on, please do. We're always happy to have you.
Oh,
I was just telling your dad if he wants to come on, jump on. Welcome to.
oh, we're not in a house near a computer. I'm on my
Where are
phone
you
right
right
now.
Oh, are you
We're in a
outside?
car museum.
Oh, okay. Well, don't listen. I mean, if you have to go, you have to go.
No, it's fine. I don't mind talking. We're waiting anyways on some stuff.
You said a car museum?
Yeah, don't judge.
What kind of cars? Like old cars, or like supercars, or?
70s, 80s, and 60s. Old.
Yeah,
They
I hate to
have
say it, but
the.
we're kind of getting off topic a little bit, and we should avoid doing that because the stream is about a particular subject.
Yeah,
I
but
think so.
I'm just gonna finish up my point and get going. But I understand kinds of aggravation because we do talk about these issues a lot, and we do not seem to talk as much about solutions. And I think these sexual assault classes are okay. We just need to be more inclusive of both genders when we're teaching that and less biased. And also, we need to discuss both issues. Colleges need to allow for both men and women clubs, and for there not to be a lot of attacking on clubs, because I've seen people try to start like men's clubs or clubs with more guys and they'll attack on them a lot. So, yeah.
Well, what we can do is be as loud as the feminists in these colleges. So what we need to do is track down colleges where they are trying to start a men's group, get in touch with the people trying to start the group, suss them out, see if they're all right. And then if they are all right, we go and we try and bombard the college or university with as many messages supporting the group as possible. We keep it polite, we keep it nice, but we tell them that we're not interested in these like people trying to reclassify any men's rights group as like a group of rapists. Like talk about them as extremists, talk about them as nut bars, and say that their opinions just don't matter. That's how we get rid of them. We show them for the nut bars they are, and we just bombard like these colleges and universities. They're caving to they'll cave over one or two complaints about anything because that's just what they're like. So if they've got a wall of feminists and they'll just cave. But if they've also got a wall of MRAs saying no, this is something that's important, then there's a good chance that they won't cave in on it. I mean, we have mentioned some other things that we can do, like sitting out front and debating them is a good idea. Uh, Possibly not during COVID, but if we can get in on some sort of debate class or something like that in the college remotely, that would be good. It's if anyone can suggest a college they know of that we can possibly debate somebody or talk to somebody within that college about our issues, then we're
Okay.
quite
Oh my God. I cannot believe I just posted. Sorry to cut you off, but I cannot believe I forgot to bring this up in this topic. I don't know what the hell is wrong with me. Go to voice discussion. Do you remember the case from Goldsmith University in London where a student welfare and diversity officer, she was a diversity and welfare officer, got in trouble because she tweeted hashtag kill all white men. And she was supported and defended by the feminist groups at the university. I cannot believe I forgot that.
well. This is something that they do, and it's something that we can use in our favor to classify them as nut bars. I mean, we really just need to start forming letter writing circles who that can go in there and send dozens and dozens of emails to different departments of the college, complaining about how these nut bars are trying to stop a men's self-help support group for men who might be victims of suicide or abuse and things like that. And then if they say that they can't have this group because it would be inflammatory, say, okay, in that case, we shouldn't have any women's support groups on the campus. And if they say no, 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 then you go, why can the women have a support group and the men can't? It's just a support group for men who are abused and stuff like that, and who want to talk about problems related to their gender, and put them on the hot plate, make them sizzle, make them dance on the damn thing. And the harder you can make them dance, the less likely they are to ban this, because then they could get in trouble. You've got to mention that you might contact the media and people like that, make them feel uncomfortable without being impolite, make them feel like the bad guy. That's how you get through to them. Oh, and ask them
I
not to complicate.
actually did a video on that. University, the student union of the University of Helsinki officially declared itself to be feminist. And I did some research. I actually emailed them. They were very snippy with me. University of Helsinki is 2-to-1 male-female ratio. There's double the number of female students. So roughly 66% of students at the University of Helsinki are women. And yet they feel the need to make the university a feminist university. Why would you need to have a special support group for the majority of students if only 1/3 of your student body is male? I'm going to post a video. I'm going to post the article I did on it, the actual article. Here we go. If only 1/3 of your student body is male, don't you think that they deserve, if anything, you have right equality? But the thing is, it's they only have feminist groups. To translate that article, but
Yeah,
so
yeah.
basically, what it
I
is
heard
when women are the minority, feminists say, well, women are a minority, so they need a special focus because they're disadvantaged. When women are the majority, they say, well, women are the majority, so it should be the special focus. Like it should revolve around them because they are their minority. So when it comes to STEM, they say women need special attention because they're a minority and being left out. But when it comes to, let's say, the perception of domestic violence, and it's not even true that women are the vast majority, but the perception of women are the vast majority, well, then we should tailor our laws to account for the fact that women are the majority of victims. It makes no sense.
Okay, I will say that, like, the way that it is where I live, or, like, you know what, maybe it's just, like, because this is just how it is with making groups inside of a school environment, that a lot of people won't even know that groups are like that. And I doubt there are tons of people that actively make sure that they know whether or not a group actually exists where they're going to school. And the fact of the matter is that no one sits there and actually says, you can't have a men's group. The issue is that nobody wants to go and make a men's group because they don't. A lot of times people just genuinely do not care until it actually affects them. That's just kind of how it is, especially with anything, not just women's rights, not just, rape, domestic abuse, nothing like that. Like, a lot of people do not care until it actually happens to them. So when there's a lot of groups there that are specifically towards women, it's more than likely because those women, it's already been established, and there's a good portion of those women that genuinely actually do need the support in those groups. If someone comes out and says, hey, we need a group for men's rights, no one's going to make a group. No one's going to give it any kind of attention. So instead of sitting here and, criticizing people for not having a group, you have to realize that the majority of the groups that are established by the students, not the college itself. If no one makes a group, then there's not going to be any talk of it, and there's not going to be any kind of reason to criticize them if that is the case.
I can understand that a lot of the time the group doesn't get created to begin with, but um, a lot of the examples that we've been mentioning are where feminists are basically seeing a men's group being started and then attacking that group in any way they can. Like, they'll tear down posters for it. They will go to the university and they will say that this is like a misogynist, rape apologist group that's trying to set itself up on campus. They will do absolutely everything they can to make sure it doesn't happen. And they do this for other groups as well, but specifically, because we're talking about this, I'll limit it to the feminists doing it. But that's what they do. We've got multiple examples of them doing it. Blues mentioned some. I think I mentioned one as well. It's just what they do. They'll take that, even if it's just men playing computer games. We had a men's group that was just for men playing computer games. The feminists came in and they stopped it.
I do have to say that, because I know I pull this card a lot, where I say, where I live, this is the case. Where I live, this is the case. I think that it's important to acknowledge that the dynamics of communities are completely different, and those that actually have experience socializing with specific groups may have a better understanding of what actually was going on inside of that group than what we hear through public knowledge. Because it's, we're not going to get the full story when there's a he said, she said. We could have people from a feminist group that got removed and said, no, all we were doing was trying to bring attention to women's rights issues. And then you could have other people saying, no, they were supporting women who rape men. We don't really truly understand that. And because we don't have that personal connection, we don't have that first person view of everything, there's no real reason for, at least for me, I can't find it in myself to go and criticize this group or that group, especially when I have zero experience with them. I don't know what was going on there. I don't know whether or not a claim was true or not. It's kind of hard to do that, especially in today's world where, we're trying to have equal rights for men and women, but in some cases, the one gender has it worse than others, and that's not the entire point. The longer that we continue to sit here and say men have it worse, women have it worse, we're not going to achieve anything besides constant fighting between each other. It's not going to do anything beneficial. We're not going to be able to solve anything, because instead of saying we need to fix this issue for men and women, and we say this impacts women more than men. Therefore, we should only focus on solving this issue for women, or we should only focus on solving this issue for men. It just puts more separation in between what should really be human rights, in my opinion.
Well, sure, I can understand that, although I don't think that there are going to be many pro-rape men or women's groups on campus. It's, it seems very unlikely to me, although there might be groups that don't support. Remember we were talking about the women's groups in India who fought against a gender equal law that would have allowed women to be charged with rape. There might be something like that, but I've never even heard of a pro-rape men's group, like a group of men trying to stop, the same thing, stop laws that allow men to be charged with rape. I've just never heard of that happening, so it does seem unlikely, personally. But I can agree that we do need to focus on solving these issues as like human issues if we can. But we do acknowledge they're human issues, but at the same time we also bring up these stats because they are important, and we do have to explain to people that men are being men do have areas where they are way, way, way behind women, and that's not any kind of attack on any places where men might be ahead of women. It's sorry, to explain that better, it's not an attack on women saying, okay, we've got these issues, or if those issues are legitimate, then we have to fix those too. It's not I think you get the point, really.
I completely understand what you're saying. I think just my personal opinion when it comes to dealing with news articles or looking at things that, might be twisted is the fact that we are never going to be able to get that full story unless we are there ourselves. Because it's not unusual. People will lie, people will twist stories. It'll be, told to one person, to another person, to another person. That story could change tremendously compared to what actually happened. So personally, for me, I can't really say that, a group was abolished for a valid reason or for not a valid reason when I wasn't personally there. So we can sit here and we can have people, say, well, they did it because they just hate men, or they did it because they just hate women, because not many groups actually get abolished anymore for reasons that are not true. I mean, like this doesn't necessarily have to, be specific towards this, but look at James Charles. James Charles has gone through tons of scandals, and he's in one of the biggest scandals now because he specifically has been talking to underage kids and has said over and over, I'm going to fix it. I'm not going to do anything. But he's still welcome on every single website, every single place that he posts videos because he makes a profit. No one's going to, argue against that. No one's going to try and say, well, he shouldn't have it. And no company is going to drop him because he makes money. So for like that, we have clear evidence towards first person accounts of their interactions with him, but it's just clout. That's what I'm talking about, is that I am not there. I'm not part of that conversation. I'm not part of a phone call. I have no reason to sit there and say, yes, this happened a specific way. I don't know if it actually happened that way, but it did happen that same way. I can't do that personally. Just personally for me, I can't do that.
Yeah, we do need to leave. If the guy has been doing anything that might concern like illegal activities, we should leave that up to the police. He should be reported to the police, and they should investigate it. And if if there's something there, he should be arrested. And if there isn't, he shouldn't be. I think that's really what we've got to do. But I mean, I know your point there was really that we don't know what's going on in these men's groups on campuses. But honestly, I tend to side on the men's groups because when you listen to what the people trying to tear them down are saying, it tends to be really insane stuff. And then you listen to the men's group themselves, and they tend to be they seem to say very normal, bland things that don't really give you an indication that it's a bad group. So I have to wonder if the feminist groups actually know what's going on in these groups, since they're men's groups, and most feminists are women anyway. So it's, do they know? I feel like the benefit of the doubt should be given to the group trying to start itself up that probably hasn't even had a meeting yet and is just trying to get approval. I mean, okay, so does anyone else have any other solutions they would like to raise that maybe we can talk about?
Well, I can do something. I can do something that I've done before. I actually, when I went to University of Miami and at FAU and at King's College, as a matter of fact, there's quite an amusing article about men's rights terrorists at King's College from 5 years ago because I graffitied the bathroom once. But I can make some flyers up, and I can go down to FAU and Palm Beach State and just hang some flyers around. I actually did it like 3 years ago, and I got an email, but not much. But I can make a flyer about the men's rights movement and starting a men's rights group. I'm pretty sure Kaiser is right that I can't be the official leader of an official students group, but I don't think there's any law that stops me from starting a casual group. Or, I could put flyers about starting a men's rights group, and then a student is made the official president of it. I mean, there's nothing they can do to stop me from being on that campus. You're allowed to go in the U.S. You don't have to be a student to go on a college campus. You don't even have to be a student to go to certain events. Nothing stops me from making a flyer and driving down to night FAU and sprinkling the vending machines in the bathrooms and whatnot. You do a very basic.
That sounds like a really good idea.
I will say, don't hold your breath, because you've seen my videos before walking around Los Angeles putting stuff up. People generally ignore flyers. They may stop and read it, but I mean, I've done this I've literally planted 1,000 flyers in the last 10 years. LA, Florida, London. People generally ignore them. Every once in a while, I'll get an email, but not much usually happens. But I can try.
I think that's a good idea. And may I recommend putting them on the backs of the toilet stalls where they're less likely to be noticed by staff?
That's my go-to. That's what I do. I do toilet stalls, and vending machines is a big one because everyone loves vending machines, especially in colleges.
That sounds like a great idea. We really should. We're getting some stickers and things printed up soon. We have actually got a graphic designer who's helping me to make some little things that maybe we can just sort of stick up around college campuses that might be harder to peel down and they might only really be noticed by students. I think it's a really good idea if you could go and do that. And I think you should probably put a link to the website on the flyer. That might be a good one. We could even, if we have a look at the, I'll show you guys the stickers and stuff when we've got the full collection. I'm going to do a big announcement about it. But Blue, if we could have a look at that, maybe we can design the your flyers to be a little bit more interesting, make them a bit, snazz them up a bit without really changing the content.
Yeah.
Just
I mean, if I'm going to do something tonight, it's going to just be a basic flyer. But yeah, no, it should be eye-catching and informative. And it should be the right length of long enough, but not too long.
Yeah, you do have to be careful about making it too long. Although if they're in the toilet stall after a bad bout of the tacos, they might pay more attention. But yeah, it's you could even put tear off strips with the website address on it or something like that, or your email. That's always a good one to do, because people then can take that email, put it in their pocket, and then they find it in their pocket later and they go, okay, yeah, let's go to that website. Or it's I don't know how effective it is statistically, but it seems like a good idea to me.
Yeah, so by the way, I'm on hold with Sam Cedar, by the way, so who knows, fingers crossed. In terms of effectiveness, I have put hundreds of flyers around UCLA, King's College, the London Underground, street posts all around Los Angeles and busy areas, UCLA, USC. I've done colleges. I mean, LA's metro, and very, very, very little seems to happen. I got an email once from a guy in LA who saw it. I got an email from a guy at FAU 3 years ago who asked me, hey, what's this about? And I explained it, and then he never answered me again. Nothing from Miami. I actually was invited to be interviewed by USC, Annenberg Hall Radio, or something like that. They found the flyers, and they called me to interview about it, because I wanted to. I was, Kursat Petskov, he was in Los Angeles. He was actually a student, and we were going to start a group. And they called me and did an interview, and then they never broadcast it, because I guess they were hoping I was going to sound crazy, and so they just never played it. So that's about as much as I ever got. And I got one subscriber like a year and a half ago. Someone said, hey, I saw one of your flyers, and I subscribed, and then I haven't heard from them since.
I think you're selling yourself a bit short, because a lot of people look at those flyers, find them interesting, and then move on without contacting you. Lurking is a massive thing. It's people will read something, look at something, but never actually sign up and start commenting. Like most of the people who are on the men's rights forum and things like that they'll upvote maybe, but for the most part they're just silent and they'll just read content. So yeah, it's
yeah, and I think you are right, because I would stop, and I'd walk 100 meters down the road, to Starbucks or something, and I would just kind of sit there and just kind of watch. People would stop and read. So people do stop and read, but I think a lot of it is they either dismiss it because of their perception of MRAs, or they're afraid to do anything about it. They're afraid of how they might be ostracized if they join up or show support. So it definitely can stir a conversation. I'm in the mood to cause some trouble, maybe, so I might make some flyers tonight, go down to the college and post it around and see what happens. I actually posted it around my hometown about 3 months ago, and literally nothing happened at all. But I live in a very apolitical city, so.
Yeah, well, it's possibly best to live in an apolitical city. I think that probably feels the nicest, less people attacking each other. But yeah, okay. Does anyone else want to get in on the sort of the flyers thing? Because we can sort of design a flyer together, and Blue can put it up, you can put it up.
I'm going to very quickly make an example of the kind of thing I'm talking about on Microsoft Word. As long as you have Word and you have a printer, it's basically free to do from that point. So the only cost is buying the printer. But yeah, let me expand. I'll show you how fast it takes to make a flyer. Very basic flyer, and printer ink. Yes, that's true, and the internet and the laptop, all that. But give me a minute. Also, I'm half distracted because I'm listening to Sam. He's taking calls. If he takes my call, I'm gonna jump on.
Yes. Okay. Blue is. Yeah, he's probably going to be a bit distracted with that. So if everyone else wants to pitch in and maybe start suggesting activism topics, activism techniques and anything that to do with that, that would be good. I mean, Kaiser does have a point that we do need to, instead of just raising awareness among ourselves, go out and raise awareness among other people and try and change these things. I mean, we do that. Just today, we've had a petition that I've been passing around that I hope everyone here who lives in the UK or has a UK passport will sign, which is to do with banning free, quote unquote, free bets on betting websites, where they will basically email a habitual gambler who hasn't been on the website for a little while with a quote unquote free bet to sucker them back into it. It's a minor issue as far as the other issues go, but it's certainly something that I feel needs addressing, and I feel that it's something which does affect men. It was the petition was in honor of a man who was a gambler. He quit, and he had one of those emails. He got back into it. He lost a lot of money and committed suicide. And yeah, I do feel like it's something that we should get on board with. But as I was saying, it's not one of the major issues from the movement, although addiction is something that men suffer from a lot more. Kaiser, did you have any ideas maybe?
I'll be about 2 more minutes.
Right. Does anyone else have any ideas, possibly? Okay, then. It does seem like things are quietening down now, especially with Blue being
Just give me
stuck on.
just give me another minute. Just give me another minute to get it done. I'm almost done.
Okay, sure, Blue. We can keep talking.
Yeah, that's basically it.
What's basically it, Misfit? Oh, you mean everything? Okay. Well, in that case, right, yeah, I was mentioning that you people want to print flyers. It's actually a lot easier and a lot cheaper than you might think if you can get a refill kit for a printer off of eBay or from Wilco or something like that. What it basically is a bottle of cleaning solution, a bottle of ink or several bottles of ink, and drill
What I
thing.
what I used to do in Los Angeles when I didn't have a printer, what I would do is I would make it on my laptop and email it to myself. And if you don't even have a laptop, you can go to an internet cafe, and it's usually not very expensive. It's like $4 an hour or something. And then you can make a flyer on Microsoft Word, and then you go to, I don't know if you guys have something like Kinko's or Office Max, but I'm sure almost any country in the world has a place where you can go and print. It's like 10 cents a copy.
Yeah, but as I was saying, if you do have a printer, you can get those little kits. They're not very expensive. They're certainly a lot cheaper than a regular bottle, like a regular printer cartridge. So you'd be making massive savings if you've got a decent printer cartridge. You can reuse it over and over. Of course, they do wear out, but you can get another printer cartridge off of eBay. You can actually get unbranded printer cartridges that fit printers that work as well as the regular ones, and yeah, it can be a lot cheaper to print than you might think if you're willing to go and maybe get an off-brand printer cartridge to do it or something. Yeah, Yidi is saying the poster should be aesthetically good if you can. It can be very much ignored by people if you don't make it look good. How you can use even simple black and white like techniques to make the poster look better. We are trying to set up a system where you will be able to order posters as a pack, but at the moment we're just sort of waiting on the posters to be made. They are in the process of being made. We're just going through them with our new graphic artist who has been making us bumper stickers and mugs and things like that.
By the way, I just posted it if you want to look. So that was me, blueorange22.doc. Just a quick Microsoft Word thing, cheap and fast to do. Basic message, gives my YouTube and my email. So that's an example, and that took me about 3 minutes to make. So gets people talking, gets people to look. No, it's not the most aesthetic, but it's something you can do quickly, cheaply, and have something to do, something to work with.
Thank you, Blue. If you could post the text of that just into the chat so that people who are watching the video can see what it says, that would be good. Okay, so do you want to talk about alcoholism? Yeah, good idea. Don't touch alcohol. I don't touch it myself. If you have a family history of alcoholism, it's probably best to just be teetotal. Blue, did you?
Well,
are you going to post the?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm just gonna say in terms of alcohol, you've seen studies in the past saying, oh, a glass of red wine is beneficial, but the most recent science shows that any amount of alcohol is bad, and the best possible, the most optimal approach is to. I just posted, by the way, the text. The absolute optimal way is zero alcohol whatsoever. And the same for caffeine too. There were studies that showed tea and coffee makes you live shorter, makes you live longer, cures cancer, causes cancer, all that kind of stuff. But recent science shows that any and all alcohol and any and all caffeine is better to be avoided. The human body works best without either one of them. And yeah, tea is okay. Like, look, if you drink caffeine and alcohol in moderation, maybe you'll live 84 years and 3 months instead of 84 years and 4 months. So it's probably a very small difference for the most part. But they did find that optimal health is without any chemicals or drugs at all.
Yeah, I can vouch for having less anxiety after I quit caffeine. But I do think we should get back onto topic. Blue, your flyer was quite interesting. Thank you for posting it in the chat. If anyone else has any corrections or ideas for flyers, that would be really good. You can just dump them into the chat if you want to.
Well, I think we touched on this last week. We should all do something from International Men's Day. And Yidia, I am agreeing with you that obviously that's not the most aesthetic flyer. That's just something quick and cheap and easy I can do like right now tonight. And I will go out tonight, by the way, and do it. But I think for International Men's Day, we've been for years talking about this idea. And sorry if you can hear Sam's call in the background. I got to keep it on hold in case they call me. But for International Men's Day, we should really make up some very nice, professionally looking aesthetic flyers with a hashtag and maybe with a, what is it called, the QRC, that square barcode thing you can scan for the server, whatever.
QR code.
Yeah, and then we should post it all on the same day, all around the world, and then post it on social media and see if it can go viral. So we'll have it around England, we'll have it in India, we'll have it around South Florida, we'll have it in Chicago, we'll have it, different states, different countries, and all of a sudden on the same day, all these flyers for this group pop up. I think we've talked about it for years. We've never done it, but I think it's time to let's make it an official plan. We are going to do that on International Men's Day. Let's really make it. Laura, you can do it in Australia. That's great. Let's make that a plan. International Men's Day, which is what, November 18th, I think. Let's look up Men's Day 2021. November 19th. Let's make it official. November 19th. We're gonna do those flyers.
Absolutely. I've already got a guy who can, who hopefully will help us with that. As I mentioned, he's doing some other art for us. I don't think a flyer would be particularly difficult for him. We will need to find a place where we can make a QR code for free or very little money, which will be reusable. I've noticed that you can make a QR code for free, but they're generally limited to the number of people who can scan it. But if we can find one which is totally free, then that would be really good. And I think we could probably get a lot of people with that, because people don't really want to type in a whole email address or a whole website address, but they'll just scan a QR code and go straight there. Yeah, I think it's a really, really good idea. We can get more people on the Discord. We can get more people on Men Are Human or Rights.men if it's ready by that point. Getting a nice slick flyer, it's going to, I think distribution is going to be harder than actual, like actually printing that sort of thing. I like the handwritten bit at the bottom of that flyer.
I don't. That was because I forgot it, and it was too late to go back to the store. So
I think it actually makes it more eye-catching, where you've got color on there, like just a little bit of color. Like even just making the header and the footer like something colorful is very eye-catching, because it's like white background with like a bright color that's, and then you just sort of read through it. We do need to maybe talk about how to format something like that, because font is important, and just design generally. I mean, I think there might even be too much text there, but it might be best to just say, think the men's rights movement is sexist, ? Well, here's the truth, and then the QR code.
yeah, I'll usually do a variety. I know I posted a video of me, I think on the server, in fact, like a couple years ago, going around LA taping them up. I would have a mixture of messages. Like one would say, why do people think domestic violence is funny when it happens to men? Or what is the truth about circumcision? Or why are men more likely to be homeless? You can make a variety of things. And it's just to get people talking and just to get people thinking. But the important thing is make sure you put a link to either your email or to this server or just something. Because what if you get someone who's interested? Or what if you get a journalist who wants to interview you, or a feminist who wants to debate you, and they have no way to get in contact? So when you make your flyer, put some way that they can get in touch with you. Either, again, your email, or the link to this Discord, or just something. So if they want to get in touch with you and make something happen, then something can happen. If you don't put contact information, then you're losing a potentially huge opportunity. And again, I've done this. When I say hundreds of times, I do mean I have done this hundreds of times. Mostly nothing happens. But you never know. I got invited to do that interview for USC's radio. They didn't publish it, but you never know. You never know when like some blogger or someone working for Vice or some feminist blog sees it, wants to interview you, wants to go live stream. You just don't know. So.
Yeah, I'll second that. I think a website is probably the best thing. We could actually have it labeled website on one side, Discord on the other, and have 2 QR codes. But that might be confusing, so it might be best to just have one QR code, like just for the website or a getting in contact sort of thing. In fact, it might be best to have a specific page on the website dedicated to International Men's Day, and the QR code itself.
Do we even have an email for the website, though? Oh, yes, we do.
Oh, there's a contact page, yeah.
Where?
If you look in the header, there's a bunch of...
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, you can contact them.
But who does it go to?
Me.
Okay.
Okay, I think that I'm going to call this as people are dropping out now because obviously we're having longer quiet patches and there's more.
Yeah, I think we're about done. I'm gonna leave.
Yeah.
Blue,
I do think that we should probably, instead of having you call him on the air while we're on the air, I think it would be much better if we specifically set up some times for you to call him where you can sit while maybe I'm recording the feed. And then if anything good happens, we can upload it. But otherwise, I think it's a bad idea to keep having Sam Cedar in the background.
I've tried sending him. I've sent him multiple emails trying to organize something. Following back on what he said.
Yeah. But I think that doing the call-ins on the Friday chat is just really being disruptive at this point.
Yeah.
I think we should probably stop it. It distracts you a lot, and then when you're talking, there's a lot of noise in the background. So I think that setting up a specific time when we try and call into a show, and then if anything happens, we've got the recording that we can upload, and if nothing happens, we don't bother anyone about it. I think that's a much better.
I'd love to. He is welcome. He is welcome on my channel literally anytime, day or night. I'm waiting for that email. Anytime he wants to respond, anytime he wants to do it, I'm ready. So I've tried to set up a specific time.
Sure.
But
anyway. No, that's not what I mean at all. I'll DM you about it. But anyway,
I get what you're saying. And I have printed out 10 of those flyers. I'm going to be going to FAU tonight, and I'm going to be posting them around Friday night.
That's awesome.
Get some traction. We'll see what happens. Vouch, I think you just mentioned Vouch. Yeah, we never agreed to talk again, so I don't know if we will or if we won't. I think I briefly mentioned it. I did some reaction videos. I got some more to do. But yeah. I'm really trying to get on Abba and Preach or Fresh and Fit. That'd be great. But they probably get 1,000 emails a day.
I would like actually to get Abba and Preach on this channel talking on the voice chat, but obviously it's difficult to get hold of people who are major YouTube stars now. But
I mean, they're probably...
Anyway, thank you and good night, everyone. I'm going to kill the stream now. It's been lovely having everyone. And if you want to come round again, we will be here next Friday at the same time. That's 5 p.m. UK time. And we will not be having the another attempt to call in Sam Cedar on the Friday voice chat. We will restrict that to a separate chat if possible. Okay then, good night everyone.
Bye.